Hello, thanks so much for joining us today. We have a special workshop planned for you today. We will be focusing on NITRO Help Desk and setting up SLAs. And I'm joined today by our resident NITRO expert, NITRO Guru, James Restivo. Before I pass things over to him, just a couple of housekeeping items I wanted to go over. So first of all, this will be recorded. So if you'd like to reference back to it, this will be added to our YouTube channel as well as to our website. So feel free to come back and reference this recording. Also, we would love to have your questions. We put the workshops on to provide support to you, our faithful customers, and we want to make sure you're getting everything you can out of it. We want to answer your questions and help you be successful. So don't be shy, use that question box, and we're here for you. And lastly, we'll keep it high level today. If you want to get super fancy with it and you want to have a one-on-one discussion afterwards, we're here for you as always. So don't be shy about reaching out for that either. Now, without further ado, I know we're all here to learn about setting up SLAs, so I'd like to go ahead and introduce James.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Yep, let me go ahead and grab control so I can share my screen. And so what we're going to be doing is walking through setting up a service level agreements, which is in our new latest iteration of our NITRO Help Desk that has a SLA platform for building out your policies, which can be as intricate as you need them to be. You can have them really detailed, you can have them granular, or you can have them high level if you want to start at high level, and it can grow with you, which is one of the nice things about it. So thanks, Krista, for all the introduction. Looks like a couple people, coming in last minute, so kind of give them a second to get situated. But yeah, so as Krista said, I'm James Restivo. I've been doing these for a long time. I apologize, I'm fighting off a little bit of a cold, so if I go on mute quickly or cough in your ear, I apologize. I'm going to try to keep those coughs on mute if I can. And yeah, we really just want to walk through what this service level agreement setup can be. So what I'm sharing on my screen is our NITRO Help Desk, one of our iterations. This is actually a little bit older version I've been using for these workshops. We have some newer versions available with slightly different UI. So if you have something that looks a little different, then yeah, that might be the case, but the content is going to be the same because that SLA feature, if you have that in your help desk, is going to be the same going forward. With of course, we'll have minor iterations, minor improvements as we go. Different things we pick up as might be ease of use, things that we can add into it, features that we can add into it. And as Krista said, if you have any feedback or anything that you want to suggest as a feature or think would be nice to have, certainly let us know via email, via questions box. As she said, these are for you. This program is really in a lot of ways designed by our customers in a way. A lot of feedback we've gotten over the years has been incorporated into our product. So we really love listening to our customers, what pain points you have. You're living it on the ground every day. What's causing you pain? What's the problem? What are the problems you're facing? And how can we help solve those? And that's really what we're trying to do here at Crow Canyon, is make sure your business runs more efficiently, and that's really what we're all about. So it looks like we've got some people kind of situated coming in now, so that's great. I'll go ahead and get started on the main part of the content, which is going to be talking about SLAs. Now, if you're using a newer version of our help desk, you're going to be able to get to our SLA feature through the application admin. So that typically is going to be either through a link at the top. You might have an administration link right at the top, or you might have it in the settings area over here for application administration. Older versions might have the little wrench, but so that'd be another way to get to the application administration. And within the application administration, you'll have a bunch of different things that you can administer about our program, of course. But the one we're going to focus on today is service level agreements. So we're going to talk about our SLAs. So SLAs in general, service level agreements, as you probably are aware, but just for explanatory purposes, service level agreements are an agreement between the IT department or a service department, whether it's IT, whether it's HR, whether it's customer service, some kind of agreement you have with your customers, with your audience that are submitting tickets, requesting things. You have an agreement with them to not only resolve the request in a certain amount of time, but also to respond to the request in a certain amount of time. And then you might have certain triggers that would escalate that request if it's not responded to in an appropriate amount of time. That could be an escalation to a manager, that could be an escalation to another internal resource, or maybe it's just a notification that says, hey, you need to get on top of this because either your SLA is becoming, the agreement's not being met because it's due in like, hey, an hour, or it was breached and you need to go and take care of this and deal with it. So there are workflows that we can incorporate into this as well that's going to drive those notifications and drive those escalations. And we'll touch on that a little bit as a part of this as well. So, to walk through the SLA framework, first of all, we have to define when does this service level agreement apply to the request coming through. And what I mean by that is, are we talking about a 24-hour, 7 days a week clock that you want to respond to? Meaning, if you have a 3-hour agreement to respond to a request, even if it comes in at 9 p.m. on a Friday, your agreement says you have to respond by 12 a.m. That same night. That may not always be the case. Maybe that is the case for your situation, but we handle that, as well as also handling situations where you end your day at 5 p.m. on Friday, come back in on Monday. Your agreement really for those 3 hours should be the first 3 hours on Monday, not those 3 hours in the middle of the night on Friday. And the way we handle that with our program here, with the service level agreements, is through the regional settings and then also through the web level settings. So you'll see this wrench here, which has the web level settings, which by default are going to come from the regional settings. Now, if you're not familiar with the regional settings of SharePoint, it's a way for you to determine what is your work week and work day look like. You'll see it here, Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you can select any one, all of those days, any of those days, and set your work day and work time. That's coming from the regional settings. And if you want to take a look at what the regional settings look like, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this tab and come over here. If you get to the site settings, that's where you got to go to see the regional settings. Now, in some cases, you'll see site information in this drop down, and then you click that, and then you click advanced site settings. If you just see site settings, you can go there directly. And then under site administration, you're going to see regional settings. So for every SharePoint site, which is what our program is based on, you're going to see the regional settings, and they can be at any time zone, and then you can also define your work week. You see, I was playing around. I defined Sunday as one of our work days and unchecked Friday. I'll just go ahead and recheck that. But so that is where you can tell what time zone, especially because we're not showing you the time zone on the SLA side of it. We're just reading the days, like this define your work week section down here. That's what we're reading and pulling into the SLA framework. And if you want to change it, you can go ahead and change things over here. Also, if you change things over here, it's going to be, this will override whatever the regional settings are. So let's say you have regional settings that are X, but you want to have different settings for your service level agreements that are Y, you can do that. So you can change them over here, the regional settings side, or you can change them directly on the web level settings. But again, this is essentially going to drive what is the calculation, how is this SLA, how is this agreement calculated for due date, response due time, et cetera, et cetera. So, like I said, if it comes in, let's say it comes in 4 p.m. on Friday, you have a 3-hour resolution commitment, that's going to be, the first 2 hours, so 10 a.m. on Monday, right? So it's going to go from the last hour of Friday, 4 to 5, and then the first 2 hours of Monday, rather than 7 p.m. on Friday. So that's how you set that. Even though you set that, you can still just do straight calendar time anyway with these list level settings. So the list level settings are specific to the tickets list, right? So we got the tickets list in Help Desk, and we have certain fields which usually aren't going to change, but if you do change them, there's an opportunity to do that. For instance, priority column. What's going to determine, what field on the ticket determines the priority? Now, in most cases, we have a priority field that's a choice field that's high, normal, low, or you could add an additional, your own options there for urgent, critical, whatever it might be. You could also, if you had some sort of calculation, you want to do a calculation between priority and urgency, or priority and you know, how many people it impacts. You could do some kind of calculation, have like an urgency field that could be different than this priority field. And so simply once that's created and you have those calculations all set up to determine that, you could come in here and change that field that it's referencing for the priority. So you'll see this when we set up the policies, we're pulling in the priority field from the tickets list that has high, normal, low. But if it had other options, those options will be pulled in as well. Again, due date column is essentially usually going to be due date. You can have another type of column for due date, but essentially due date is going to be your commitment for resolution on that ticket. So that's going to be your due date. You could override that. There's an option to override that possibility. So I mentioned you could calculate the SLA using business time or calendar time. So you have that option right here where you can choose business time, which is going to refer back to those regional settings we talked about and the web level settings, but also gives you an opportunity to identify holidays. So this does require you to go in and put in the holidays that are specific to your organization, which could be different based on different organizations. Some organizations give 10 holidays, some organizations give more, some organizations give less. And of course, they move throughout the years, right? 4th of July is not always observed on 4th of July. It could be the Friday, it could be the Monday if it's on the weekend. Same with Christmas, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. You can define your holidays and just got to define them out however long, maybe 3 or 4 years into the future. You can define that, or if you ever have to go in and change that, you can certainly do that. But we've given you a holidays list in the system, and you can see you have a direct link over to it from within the SLA. So you can come over to your holidays and you get to the settings page, but you can go back to the holidays. It's like a calendar type list, and then you can identify what your holidays are for the service level agreement. So again, that would exclude those even though they come on a Monday through Friday. And then, so if we have a change in policy, there's some scenarios where you might have a policy applied from the outset of the creation of the ticket, but then you have a change in that. The priority changes, maybe you recognize it as a high priority ticket versus a normal priority ticket or vice versa. You can change that priority and you change that, which changes that application of the policy. And then it could also look at the time that's already spent on the ticket from when it was created or from when it was modified, and that would drive the calculation of the new SLA applied to that ticket. And then you also have an option to update that remaining time on the ticket every 15 minutes or so. And then also here at the list level settings, again, this will be applicable to all the various policies that you might put into place here. You have a pause condition, which has our condition builder, which gives you a lot of flexibility in how you build out those conditions. It's very, the simple one is just a status of on hold, where you can pause that SLA. It's going to pause the calculation, and it could be on hold for various reasons. Maybe there's only certain people who can put it on hold. You can decide that level of what happens there. But what we're doing here is identifying when a ticket becomes in the on hold status. We're going to stop that clock. We're not going to calculate that time anymore. So it means if you're close to a breach and you put it on hold, it won't get breached until you move it back to a resume condition, which would be these next options over here, which these would now trigger the clock to start again to keep calculating that SLA. So you can have that pause in place and then come back to your ticket, assign it or whatever, or change the status and resume that SLA calculation. So there's an option to do that there. Then of course we have to stop the calculation at some point. Eventually it's going to be resolved. Eventually you're going to fulfill that request, fulfill that ticket, whatever it might be. You're going to have it end. So you're going to have resolved or closed status. Again, these are what we give you out of the box. Certainly other options are possible. If you had different completion conditions or different resume conditions or different pause conditions, you could do that. But this gives you that setup possibility from the top level to apply to all of the corresponding policies that fall underneath of it. And then finally, you have your policies themselves. So the policies themselves are going to be condition-driven policies, which means that they're going to look at the ticket data, the metadata, maybe who it's coming from, what department it's coming from, what the category and issue type might be, or maybe just the category, or maybe just the requester. There could be any number of things you can put in place to drive that policy application for the service level agreement. What we have here is a default policy, which is a catch-all, no conditions. Any ticket that gets created, if it doesn't hit any of the other policies, if you have other policies in place, will get picked up under this default policy. Now, through this default policy, we recommend for the default one anyway, don't have any conditions, but for every other policy, at least have one condition. And you're going to have different options for calculating the time or deciding how much time it would take to, for the first reply, or how much time it would take for the resolution. So we give you first reply first on here, and you have an option to say 15-minute reply for a high priority, 360-minute reply for a low priority, which would be 6 hours, or 4 hours for a normal priority, 240 minutes. And then that would give you the reply time. When first, get a response, get something out to the customer to say, we're working on it, we've got your ticket, hey, we have some questions, here you go. That's the reply. But then the resolution is going to have a different time frame because it should be a little bit longer than the reply, right? You want to have the reply and the resolution be the same time frame. Resolution is going to take a little bit longer. And this is really what you agree to with your constituents as far as what is an appropriate amount of time to respond to a high priority ticket? What's an appropriate amount of time to, or not reply or resolve a high priority ticket, to resolve a low priority ticket? And you see we've got kind of order of multiple days here sometimes. So you just multiply 60 times however many hours you want it to be, and that will give you the resolution and the number of minutes you want to put into this setup here. And now obviously you can change that, or if you want to skip the reply and just go straight to having only resolution SLAs, you can do that. Just specify 0, and that's going to skip it entirely. So 0 means it just skipped, because you can never have an immediate response or immediate resolution. That's just not a thing. So when you put a 0 here, it's basically saying we're going to skip that SLA for a high priority, or maybe all the low priority tickets. We want to skip that and put that back to 15 or whatever it is. So low priority, no SLA, there's no breach. If you don't get response to that low priority ticket in a few days, who cares? It's a low priority ticket anyway. Don't worry about it. But if you do want to have some number on there, you certainly could. And then same resolution, same idea. If you wanted to say there's no resolution here, no SLA for low priority tickets, you could do that. Otherwise, you could make sure you put your numbers in there. Whatever number makes the most sense for your agreement and your organization. Now, what happens when that SLA is breached, or we're coming due, or it's getting close? That's where the workflows come into play. So we can do a escalation workflow on breach of reply, or you can do it on resolution, or both. And what I'm going to do is both of these scenarios. So when you set up a workflow, from here you can see you have the direct link over to our workflow settings. We can go ahead and open that up. You got your SLA tab is still over here, so you can come back to it and refresh this when you're ready. You can see we don't have any options right now. What you need to set up for this is a bot triggered or scheduled or user triggered workflow. That's what it is. So when you come in here to new, to create those for these response and escalation workflows, anything that's on the breach. So these workflows for what happens when a ticket SLA is breached, come in here, click new, tickets list is already decided for you. That's great. You can choose your experience. I like designer because I think it's really better. And then you want to choose that scheduled user bot triggered, this one right here. So you want to make sure you choose scheduled user bot triggered, and that's going to allow that workflow to show up in that drop-down list over here, right? So because we do have workflows on this list, so you can see we don't have them here because they're not user bot triggered. But we'll come over here, we'll create that. All right, it's giving a minute to load. There we go, great, perfect. Now, most of the time, you only really need to send an email. So what we're talking about here is like, okay, on first reply, maybe we'll send a reminder. You see there's a reminder option, or you could do an escalation. For reply, maybe it's just really just, hey, I want to send a notification to the assigned staff that your ticket has not been addressed yet. And so what we can do for that scenario is create a workflow with a send mail action. Open up that send mail action. We'll call it assignee response or whatever it is. And then we're going to choose a template. Now, I've already created this template of a response due reminder. I did that ahead of time because I didn't want to go through the column mappings, but you can go and create a template, modify templates, whatever works for your scenario to have that notification go out to, in this case, we're going to send it to the assignee of the ticket. And so you can put the details of the ticket, put your placeholders in there. Ticket ID has not been responded to. That's your template. Put as much or as little detail in it as you feel is necessary. And then that's your mail template. Now, who's it going to go to? Well, we're going to send that over to the assignee. So we're going to choose assigned staff to remind them that they need to respond to this ticket. And we'll just give it some kind of no reply at sharepointonline.com. So some kind of no reply, but of course you can have your own address in there. That's it. That's all you really need to do. Hit save, and there you go. If you wanted it to do other things, maybe a reassignment or maybe update the work log, you could do that. Like for instance, let's say you want to do an update list item and update the work log and say update work log. And what we're going to do is it's going to be for the current item, so that's fine. We're going to add a column mapping. We're going to choose work log, and we're going to choose just simply say email reminder sent to assignee. And you can even put the assignee in there if you want to do like a string cat function. You could do something like this, where you do string cat, email reminder sent to, and then we could do comma, and then assign staff as our placeholder there. And just make sure there's a space after the 2, so we get a space there. So you can even have it dynamically say, we're gonna send, email reminder was sent to who the assigned staff is. Or you could just say email reminder was sent to blah to the assignee. Whatever you want to do. So you can update the work log in there as well if you wanted to. Entirely up to you. And then simply publish that when you're ready. So we got to put in a response reminder. Okay, so we're going to choose that. Cancel response reminder. That's a tab. All right, there we go. And then one other thing you need to make sure when you're doing these settings after you give it a name is uncheck the scheduled option, because it's not a scheduled workflow. It's just a user bot triggered. So we just want to make sure that that's the only one selected here. We can go ahead and I think leave everything else as is. If you want to do an execution history, you can do that and then hit OK. And that publishes it. And now when we come back over here, just give it a minute to finish up publishing. Come over here, refresh. And you see response reminder. There it is. So now we can use that as our escalation workflow. Or if we want to create additional notifications or go to different people, we can create different workflows and send mail actions and different actions to do that. Same in resolution, but maybe for resolution, you want to take it a step further and escalate it to the manager, or at least let the assignee's manager know about it, if nothing else. So we're going to come over here to our workflows. I'm going to close this one. Again, you could click over to workflows from the gear on the SLA setup itself, or you can just come into the workflow tool and click new. We're going to get our tickets list because it took away that auto selection of it. So just always make sure the list up here is tickets if it doesn't auto select it. Again, scheduled user bot triggered is what you want to select here. And then we're going to do well, in this case, we're going to start with a variable. The reason we're going to do the variable is because we want to get the assignee's manager, and we can get that data from Active Directory. So we're going to choose assign staff manager. You can see I was working on, sorry, I actually spelled manager wrong. I apologize. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. And then the way we're going to build this, we're going to use the new expression builder. And we're going to call this a function, and the function is going to be get Is it get SP? I think it's get SP user property. I think get SP or get AD, I think both kind of work similarly, slightly different placeholders that would be in place. But I think I'm gonna do the SP user because I know we can get that manager information from SharePoint. So you can see here what the arguments are that it's looking for, and so you got the placeholder of the user you want, of the information you want to pull from that user, and then the information you want to get from the user, which user you want to get information from, and what you want to get from that user. So see, maybe is it 80 get property value? Maybe it's 80. Let me just try that one. Yeah, it's the AD property value. Similar idea. You can try that one as well if that one is you're more comfortable with the AD property names. You can do that, or you can do SB user property. I think both will work just the same. And you want to get the assigned staff from the current item. And then we're going to do fixed value, and this is going to be the property that we want to get, which is manager. And then we're going to delete this third argument because we don't need that. And that's what we're going to get. So we're going to get the user property of the assigned staff, which is the manager field of the assigned staff. So now we have this assigned staff manager as a variable. And then what we can do is come in and create our send mail. And I'll talk about this specifically because this is the important piece of it, is that the to field can now be assigned staff manager. Make sure I spell it right. Value. There. So now we can use that variable value of the assigned staff's manager as the to field. Of course, we could also send this to the assignee as well, just to give a notification that, hey, it went to your manager. And then we're going to call this escalate to manager as our action. And then we're going to choose escalate to manager as our template. Again, this is one I created ahead of time. So you can just, again, same idea, put as much information in the template as you need to, or as little, and that's going to go to the manager and then go to the assignee as well. So once you've got your template set, you can save that, associate it with the send mail action, make sure you put your recipients, and then we do no reply. Okay, and then that's it. So again, if you wanted to update the work log, you can certainly do that. We could do an update list item. If you wanted to reassociate that or reassign it to the manager, you can certainly do that as well. And similar ideas like reassign to manager. Same concept as the column mappings, is that you can use that variable. So we're going to use assigned staff, and we're just going to go in here, choose variable, make it easy. There, same, now you can reassign it to the assigned staff as well in that same action. So they're getting notified of it. They'll probably get the assigned staff notification anyway, because that's one of the notifications we have built into the system. But as a fail safe, you want to really make sure that they know it was reassigned. Because really what we're talking about here is an SLA has been breached. So you probably want to have some kind of flags and bells, and start blowing the horn and say, hey, you got to get this done. We're breaching our agreement here. Of course, depending on the severity of that, you could have more kind of notifications, notify more people, update flags on the ticket itself more than just reassigning it. You could even have other fields updated to really highlight it, kick it to a higher priority because now the SLA is breached, various other things. So through the update item action, you can do all that, update work log, etc. And then of course, once you're all set with that, you can go ahead and publish your workflow. And again, make sure scheduled is unchecked, hit OK. Actually, I'm just going to go back a second because I was having some trouble with this running earlier. I think we need to have this turned on because it is going to be modified by an automated process to be deleted. So I think you do have to have this turned on in order for it to work. So just check that. If it's not working for you, make sure you come in here and check this box to try it, because it is going to be the update for indicating that the SLA is breached will be an automated update in the background. So it kind of makes sense that you would need to have that checked off for it to work. So again, once it's ready, publish it. And we'll give that a minute to refresh. Okay, it came through. Refresh this, and now you can see your escalate to manager option available. So now we can save that. And there we go. Now we have our default policy configured for escalations, for response reminders, for reassigning that ticket when it gets breached. Great. Okay, but what if you have more policies, more than one? You want to have more than one policy in place. Well, you can easily come in here and create a new policy and give it whatever name you want. It'll say it's calendar category. Or I'm going to do a hardware problem, actually. Hardware problem. So a hardware problem for hardware problem tickets. So for any hardware problem that's coming through the system, you want to apply a different set of timing, a different SLA for those. And that could be longer, could be shorter than the default, depends on what you need. Probably shorter would be likely. But the way you would do that is now you want to set up your conditions to say when category equals hardware problem, we're going to have a different SLA. We're going to say the response for, it should be, 15 minutes is the minimum. So we're going to leave that as is. I think it was 360, 240. I'm going to change it to, 240 and 120 for response. Again, this is our response workflow. We can have our response reminder. You can use that same workflow for multiple policies. And then we can have our resolution be a little different. And we'd have to remember, I've been looking at them all a lot, so can't remember what they are, but let's say it's just about half of what it was. It was like 540 or something like that. And I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what this one was. Let's say it's somewhere in between, say 1200. Somewhere in between, and we're going to escalate to manager. So now when a ticket comes through with a hardware problem, let me go ahead and save that. It's going to hit this one, but it is going to go in order. So you do want to make sure that these are in the order of most complex, most granular type of application to least granular. So you kind of want to like catch, the default policy is going to be your catch-all. Anything that doesn't meet all the other criteria for policies is going to get the default policy no matter what. But anything else above that is going to look at the different applications and apply accordingly. Now, of course, this really comes into play if you have different timings for different groups or different departments or maybe different people. That's where you want to have those different SLAs. And if and that's why the conditions being so granular, having the level of complexity that you can really build it out as much as you want, it means that you can have the same timing for a lot of different conditions, right? So let's say you wanted it not just for hardware problem, but you wanted this also for, I don't know, let's see, what other categories are there? Let's see, website problem. Website problems can be a pretty big deal. So let's go ahead and add a condition where category is website problem. So there we go. And so you can build that kind of condition in there. And so when category equals either hardware problem or website, we're going to apply this SLA differently from every other ticket that comes through. Well, let's say even further than that, you want to look at issue types beyond categories. You can do that too. So again, you can come in here and have your issue types be your conditions. So, sky's the limit on what you want to do here from these condition standpoints. You can have it based on issue types. You can have it based on, I mentioned department. You can have it based on the requester department could have a separate SLA. Department A has a different agreement than Department B, maybe based on the nature of their role in the organization or based on the criticality of their function. You might have a different agreement with them than you do your other departments. Or it could be location based as well. Maybe if you're servicing multiple locations, you might have location A with one agreement and location B with a different agreement. And that's where you can drive that with creating these different policies. But yeah, that kind of covers what was wanted to talk about here with SLAs. I think that's it. I mean, it's really just about, again, just to recap, you've got the top level, what are your business hours if you want to use business hours for the SLA. You've got your individual, within the list itself, you got the priorities, due date, and your pause, resume, and completion conditions. And then on the policies themselves, you can have your granularity of when you apply that policy. And again, it's top to bottom, so you want to have your top, you want to go through it in order. So your most restrictive policy should be at the top, your least restrictive should be at the bottom. That's kind of the long and short of it. Hopefully you found this helpful. Let's see, Krista, any questions out there?
Well, I know I found it helpful. But I do see, it looks like we do have a question about if you could show again where to access the SLAs.
Yeah, I did see that question pop in earlier, and what I think what we'll need to do, Joshua, we'll need to reach out to you directly to talk about that, because I think that's maybe a versioning issue with the help desk, but it is something that we could potentially make available for your help desk as well. So if you're interested in that, we'll reach out afterwards and talk to you about how to do that. But in general, for anyone else who's confused about where to find this SLA policy setup, again, it's going to be in your application administration. Now, application administration, it could, based on your version, it could be in different places. It could be over here in the gear. In later iterations, the kind of more the most recent iterations of our help desk. Let me just pull this up real quick for a demo site. This one here, help desk v2. You can see administration link is right at the top, so a little bit different look and feel for this newest iteration of the help desk. But you'll see once I click administration, it looks pretty much the same over here. So in the service level agreements, this is exactly the same over here. So nothing changed there. It's the same thing, but just slightly different way to get to it. But yeah, that's that. But Josh, we'll reach out to you separately on that piece and talk about that. But great. Good. All right. So I think that's good. If there's any other questions or anything else, we'll take a minute, kind of let them filter in. But ultimately, this will be up on our YouTube channel so you can review it later. There's a survey that's going to go out afterwards if you have any topics you'd like to see covered, things that you're a little confused about, things that you want to learn a little bit more about. We take feedback from you as far as what we can cover here. These sessions are for you guys to really learn what NITRO is all about, learn what the applications are all about. As Krista mentioned, this is kind of more of a geared towards our help desk application customers, and the idea there is that we're going to have some more of these kind of specific to application type workshops in addition to our regular NITRO Studio workshops. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I think that's it. Chris, anything else? Anything you want to add?
I think that's everything for today. We'll have our next workshop on November 28th, if you'd like to tune in for that with all the new updates we've got going on this month. And we appreciate you all for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Krista. And thanks, everyone. Have a nice rest of your day.
Thanks, James.